Okay, as has been said, I'm Joyce Mashabella, and I'm representing the Quality Council for Trades and Occupations. We commonly call it the QCTO because that name is way too long for anyone to say. Now the question is, how does the QCTO fit into this context? That is, the context of employability. The QCTO has two main functions. One, develop qualifications, and two, quality assure the delivery and assessment of the qualifications. Thus, in the context of employability, the QCTO's key responsibility is to develop qualification that makes one employable. And for that reason, I began my process by defining a few words in order to be able to write this presentation. I had to determine what's employability. And as you can see on the screen, that's the definition I found. I had to determine what does it mean what is the definition of employ? Again, you see the definition on the screen. And finally, I got to employable, which led me to the word capable. Now, there is an entire development process that we use at the QCTO, and it is our responsibility in this process to ensure that there is an environment, a conducive environment, that exists where the qualifications needed by industry are defined. Not just industry, but also government, I should say, and nonprofits, the whole gamut of the world, really. And that's what makes our job so difficult, because we don't just focus on one or two things, but we focus on the entire economy. Now, the process essentially involves ensuring that all the relevant role players and stakeholders are present, and that we provide an atmosphere where everyone can contribute. That's no easy feat, I can assure you. It is the QCTO's work. In our work, we do try to apply something called Kaizen. And Kaizen, that's the long definition, but basically when you sum it up, it is an approach of constantly introducing small incremental changes in business in order to improve quality or efficiency. Recently, we did a Kaizen adventure, which we hope will be successful, to assist in the qualifications development process. What we've done is we've added a layer of facilitators to work with our deputy directors who go out and try to do the development part. Their role, that is the facilitator's role, is to monitor what's happening with the qualification development process so that we can identify blockages, so we can see where there are problems, so that we can clear up problems, so we can see what is it costing us to do this function. We, as I said, indeed hope it does work, because that's an efficiency measure that we really need to drive. That is, moving the qualifications development process along in a more speedy pace, but do not allow the contribution of stakeholders to suffer. We must make sure that all the stakeholders are in the room and are able to speak their voices. The other key issue that we've grappled with as we try to do qualifications development is which ones do we develop first? You can imagine everyone is suffering from budget constraints, and you'll never get the amount of budget that you need to do your work. We have been quite lucky in that the government, given its focus on a developmental state, has started quite a few initiatives that helped us to focus on which qualifications should we focus on. At the beginning of the QCTO's existence, the Department of Higher Education and Training declared the Decade of the Artisan. The QCTO was also fortunate in that the department, let me just talk to the slide a minute. So you see, the Decade of the Artisan, we were able to understand the trade qualifications were a major factor in the economy. So what we did was we focused quite a lot on trades in the beginning, There are 125 registered trades, so that helps us. So we're defining the world of what a trade is. And we then went on to develop about 30% of that 125. Now, we have 87 qualifications registered with SACWA. I assume you know our process, that you have to have qualifications registered with SACWA on the NQF, the National Qualifications Framework, in order for it to be a valid qualification. So we finally have 87 registered on the NQF, and of those, 37, that is approximately 35% are trades. So you can see how the government initiative really drove and focused our work. We were also fortunate that the QCTO, when it was getting on its feet, the white paper came out. And the white paper focused quite a lot on making sure that TVET colleges were developed. So that helped us to focus even further which qualifications we should offer. We needed to offer those qualifications that could be and would be offered at the TVET colleges. For those of you who don't know, the white paper sets out the strategies that the DHET and its institutions, people like the CETAs and the QCTO, are responsible for delivering. Now, one of the big focuses on the TVET colleges was the NATED, you know, the NATED programs, the National Accredited Technical Education, well commonly called the NATED programs. So we have been working quite a lot on redesigning those. And we are currently under discussion with the DHET about these because we can't just develop them in our own vacuum. We must make sure that the department is on board with us. So what we're looking at right now is that the financial management will be converted into the bookkeeper, hospitality and catering into event and hospitality assistant, tourism into travel and tourism officer. And we are quite happy about the last one. If you know anything about the NATED qualifications, you know that they don't have an IT qualification. They had IT subjects, but not a qualification. So through our initiative, we are asking the department to agree with us to create a computer technician qualification to be offered in the TVET colleges. We all know how important the computer sector is to our economies. Other government initiatives that the QCTO is proud to be in support of are things like your industrial development zones. And there I've just given a definition of it so that you can know what it is. Industrial estates, you know, large tracts of land that are linked to an international port or airport. And these try to encourage investment in export-oriented manufacturing industries, of course, like your automobile industry. So that we have been very good with that one because trades are needed in automobiles. So, you know, you have the Koiga, which is an industrial development zone. I think it's in the Eastern Cape. Other areas that we've been really well with, I think, maybe I'm prejudiced, is renewable energy. Now, you know, the CETAs, though nice people, are a feisty bunch. What happened is that they wanted this solar water installer qualification desperately. You know that the government made an initiative to put solar water heaters throughout many of the townships. And so here we sit at QCTO with something called our qualifications committee. Because we in the office, we can do all the work we want to, but if the qualifications committee, which is a part of the QCTO, doesn't approve of the qualification, it goes nowhere. And so that's what happened with the solar water installer. You had Chieta telling me, I don't care what you people do, we're still gonna offer this and we're offering it now. You had the GIZ saying, we got an interest in this, push this thing, move it faster, Joyce, you can do that. It took me forever to let them understand that we have processes and procedures over which I have no control. So I had a lot of sleepless nights thinking that, oh my goodness, all these water heaters are gonna be on these rooftops or wherever you put them, and there's not gonna be anyone to repair them. Luckily that didn't happen, and we have the solar water heater qualification installed, as well as another renewable energy one that I'm not thinking of right now. Another example, agro-processing. We're working on that. We thought the dairyman might be a nice way to get started, you know. Turns out a dairyman, what was one qualification turned into about 15 to 20 qualifications, because to make milk is different from making ice cream, it's different from making yogurt, it's different from making butter. And so again, I had sleepless nights, but that one is on its way through as well. Other areas that we're focusing on are the pharmaceuticals. As you know, DTI is wanting to increase the manufacturing in this area. We had a significant decline in pharmaceutical manufacturing, so we are processing the pharmaceutical technician. And lastly, we all know that tourism is quite popular, and no matter what kind of tourist you are, domestic, international, you're going to want to eat. So chef was done. So we're happy about that as well. Now the department, in its recognition of the need to understand the demand for employment and skills needs, is responsible for what we call the delivery of output goal. Oh, that's the wrong way. Oh, how come I got two of these? Oh man, that's the wrong one. Yo, well the rest of, I do have more stuff. Can we open this up again? Did she save the, I think I saved the wrong, I opened the wrong one. I have more slides. They told me to send my slides in. I sent my slides in, and now they're trusting me to be responsible. This is not good. Hey.
Is this the second one?
Maybe it's the second one. Yeah, final. Mm-hmm. Thank God you're here. Okay.
I don't think I'm supposed to be in this capacity.
You know what? You're a seeker, you can do anything, man. Okay. This is the commercial break. Wait. Did I do that? Did that one? I got two-seater people helping me. This is great. Okay. The office is responsible for Output 5, which expresses the need for an integrated forecasting and planning, and I'm sure many of you have heard about all the forecasting plans. Now, the planning information is important for the QCTO. We too want to do some better research, because the more we understand what industry wants, the more relevant our qualifications can be, and the more employable our young people can be. But this is where we come to the problem. Although we have done a study on what our structure should look like, we don't have the money to implement it. Our funding model requires that we have to apply for our money on an annual basis. So we can at best project for a 2-year time frame. That type of income accounts for about 80% of our funds. The fiscus, which we get on a permanent basis, is very low and only accounts for about 20% of our income. So we have considered the matter, and we're going to try to put in the structure. It's going to be difficult for us, but we'll have to do something. We'll have to figure out something, because we have to engage with the stakeholders. We have to do that, or we won't get the qualifications we need. And as we said, we want to make the qualifications relevant, or we'll be back where we were 5 years ago, industry streaming, that people are not being trained for what they want. So I'm not sure how we're going to do it. If you're a praying person, get on your knees and help us out. Maybe that will be the answer. So I can say, though, that with our limited budget, we do have the 87 qualifications registered, and there is uptake in about 11, but I think that number is incorrect, because I see that I don't see some of our popular ones there, like the electrical linesmen. And the thing is, all we can do is contact the providers that are accredited, ask them for the information, but again, because of our limited budget, we can't go out aggressively to get this information. But we are plugging along, and we don't use the limited budget as an excuse to stop us from doing what we know we are mandated to do, and more than anything, what is needed to be done. Now, in closing, see, I don't speak long. It was a good thing I gave you a commercial. I went to the website of the University of Edinburgh, and they have this cute little thing about what employability is and is not. Employability is not simply getting a job. It is not a list of skills that can be taught, but it is ongoing success for now and in the future. That's what's important. Employability looks at the future, not just the now. It is drawing on a range of skills, abilities, and attributes that are developed in a whole range of learning settings. And that's why we're here today, because the WIL is another learning setting. And we must get that learning setting off the ground if we are going to be successful in getting people employed, making them employable. And so, on that same website, they show a model that these two gentlemen, Poole and Swell, produced to say what makes a student employable. So they first look at the career development learning. They look at what we're talking about here today, experience in the workplace. And I just put that up so you can see how experience in the workplace is ingrained in all aspects of our training. And I just want to close and leave you with this very last quote. To be employable is to be at risk. It's supposed to be employed. Somebody didn't type this real. It's to be employed, not employable. Is to be at risk. To be employable is to be secure. Thank you.
The University of Johannesburg. Rethink, reinvent.